A disclaimer, today's program is being recorded. Any views expressed in this webinar are for general educational purposes only and do not represent any official views or positions of the sponsoring or presenters organizations. Greetings and welcome to today's educational program, Integrating Management System Requirements into Business Operations by Jerry Rice. This is your moderator, Shobha Mittal with ASQ Quality Management Division. Today, we have the distinct pleasure of hearing from Jerry Rice. Please join me in welcoming Jerry. With over 30 years of experience in manufacturing quality across diverse industries, Jerry Rice brings deep expertise in quality management and organizational excellence. He has held leadership roles that have made a significant impact on supply chain, HR, engineering, operations, and finance. For more than 25 years, he has been an active leader with the American Society for Quality. In 2023, he was appointed to the ASQ Technical Communities Advisory Board and the ASQE Board of Directors. He also dedicated 6 years of assisting with the development of the ASQ Certified Manager of Quality Organizational Excellence exam and later supported the creation of preparation material for future candidates. Jerry has been certified by ASQ as a Manager of Quality and Organizational Excellence, Quality Engineer, and Quality Auditor since 1996. His specialties include Six Sigma, Lean, Industrial Statistics, Strategic Planning, ISO 9001, Project Management, Database Development, Metrology, APQP, Team and Supplier Development, Business Metrics, and Management System Integration. And so, without any delay, it's my pleasure to introduce Jerry Rice. Jerry, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Shobha. So let's get right into this. Welcome, everybody. In this session, we're going to be exploring something that I've never seen before, something I've been working on for probably 9 years. I've never seen it quite put together like this before. I'd be very curious if any of you have. But in this session, we're going to talk about integrating management system requirements into your daily operations. And that involves systems development, team development, a look at systems requirements or system requirements, that's management system requirements, and then also the monitor and improve portion of all this. So the goal is to build a unified, effective system where external requirements blend naturally into daily operations. We have only about an hour, so this presentation will touch on some of the key concepts without diving into detail. We could spend an hour on each of these key areas and still not uncover all the underlying concepts. So this will be a rather high-level view. At some point, I may do a deeper dive into each of these areas in other webinars. So the first thing is I want to explain the operations map, and there's an important thing about this. This looks simple, and in fact, let's say 9 years ago, when I started at Mercury, a guy named Chris Yard showed me this, something similar to this. So this is not theirs. This is one I made up. But also, as soon as I saw it, I knew exactly what I was looking at. I wasn't really sure what to do with it, but to me, it was very intuitive of, okay, this is how the business runs. It is a high-level overview of the operations. It's based on business entity or business unit in a way, but also in a way this is scalable. And I'll explain that here in a little bit. But really, the thing is simplicity. Just keep it simple. It should be able to fit to one page. And also, every organization will have a different operations map. You have a different language that you might use. And also, you just may see the way your operations flows in a different way. So a manufacturing facility may have one operations map, while a corporate or divisional headquarters in the same company could have another. A leasing business unit could have another. However, several manufacturing facilities within the same company could very well have the same operation map. And the same could go for a hotel or restaurant chain. Each franchisee may have the same operations map. So anyway, it's not complicated. It's simple. And the important thing about this is that this is how you're going to classify your processes. You don't classify them by departments. You classify them by what the organization does. Okay, so here's the next big thing between the operations map and this. I don't even know what to call this yet, but integration map maybe. This is actually where operates. So you have systems development, which basically is your system of operations, and then the system topics that you saw in the operations map, and then it gets down into processes and activities, and that's basically it. So anything in the pink here is the systems development stuff. Then the team development stuff. Really, there's just roles, team members, and needs and teams. And then systems requirements. These are just all the requirements from all the different management systems that are and regulations that your organization feels that are important. And then the other part is just monitor and approve. It's where you match your actual results against your targets and goals and find ways to close those gaps. Okay, so systems development. When I saw that operations map for the first time, and then I also basically these three components show up in ISO 9000 as far as defined components of the system. So if you look at each of these three, it's like, okay, well, what about, these definitions were developed specific to QMS, but I suggest they can be applied to entire organization with a few tweaks. I believe an organization only has one system of processes that interact with each other. There's irrespective of department, irrespective of management system standard or regulation. There's one system. And so these three elements, the system, processes, and activities, are the foundation of systems development. Okay, so what if we decide we wanted to classify our processes based on the operations map? Each business process should be able to fit into some area of the operations map. And also, these are just examples. They're made up examples. But these are just a few of the examples. So there could be 20 or more processes under each of the 15 or more system topics, let's say. An organization could easily have 300 processes. Some could have much less. Some could have a few more. It really just depends. Depends on the complexity of your organization. But for the most part, if you can't fit a process in your operations map, you probably don't need that process, or you need to change your operations map. Okay, so the way that I found the most efficient way to define a process is with something called business process modeling notation, or BPMN. It's just a standardized model, and it's standardized across industry. What I use is just a very small subset of the shapes, but it's the same basic thought behind it. So process modeling, in my opinion, should not be complicated. There are several BPMN software packages on the market. They can get very complicated. I found that PowerPoint really works well for what's really needed. And I have templates that actually where I can change the different however many swim lanes I need. So it's fairly easy. So here's an example of a process model. In this case, it's corrective action. The main components of a process map are activities. Those are in the dark blue boxes. And then there's calls in and out of other processes. Those are the green boxes with the pluses. And it really doesn't matter where you put a process, one of these green boxes, which swim lane, because it's calling out to a process that's going to have its own swim lanes. So what's important is that the blue boxes, or the activities, show up in the proper swim lane. And so roles are denoted by the swim lane. And also resist the urge when you're doing this, resist the urge to put too much detail or get over specific with a role and activity names. 2 to 3 words, or even 1 to 3 words should be adequate to name stuff. the necessary detail will be in the standard work, so, or in whatever work instructions you do. So you don't need to put a lot of detail in the names of your activities. Keep the catalog of shapes and symbols used to a bare minimum. Less than 20 is ideal. Any more than that, and it just, you probably don't need them. Yeah, I don't know, because I don't know your business, but we found that we needed very few shapes. Also, the specialized software isn't needed. If you get dedicated software, it may be overkill. Like I said, I've seen a lot of these get extremely complicated trying to map out your operations with all the automatic links and things like that. You can do it, and also I suppose if it makes it easier for you, then you could do it. So one word of advice is don't treat a process map like a formal procedure. So there's no need for a scope to be stated. If the scope isn't obvious by looking at it, you probably aren't doing it right. The same can be said with the purpose and even responsible. You can see who's responsible because the roles are right there. There's also no need for revision history on really any, I think most of you have probably seen the SOPs or procedures that have all this stuff, and they have the revision history. And just basically, there's a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with the process itself that that are on a lot of these procedures. If you can use any type of content management software, and most organizations have that now, even SharePoint can be used to track changes and ensure control and keep your revision histories. I don't think that you need a revision history log in the document, in my opinion. The other thing is don't go with these. You can actually, there's a few decisions like on this process, but don't go crazy with decisions and loops. Document the process as it's intended to function, and then call out like a separate exception handling process or something to handle exceptions. Really, that's what managers are for, is handling exceptions. So don't get overly hung up on loops. Anyway, just don't make it complicated. Keep it simple. Okay, so here kind of explains, the relationship between a process. So the process before that you saw on the slide before was corrective action. So the blue boxes, there were some activities, and they're now green boxes here. I'm trying to keep with the ASQ color scheme. So all the activities are listed there, and then for each activity, you're going to have some type of work instruction or standard work, job instruction, whatever you want to call it. What you call it, to me, isn't important. Some people feel that, but anyway, you call it whatever is the language of your organization, but it's just instructions. It can come in several formats, such as checklists, which is my favorite, work instructions with pictures, video instruction, a learning module, and a learning management system. Can be taught one-on-one by a mentor using job instruction from training within industry, TWI. Could even be cases where an activity is so intuitive that no instructions needed, but you still want to document that this activity occurs. So that's kind of the way that I see processes, activities. The processes are hung on topics in your operations map. They're not owned by departments necessarily. Part of this would be the team development side. Okay, so you have roles, and then a team need for that role. And then a team member has to get the ability to fill that role, to fill a need in the team. So that's basically the way it works. A role is just a set of activities performed by a person. The ability is evidence the person is competent to perform that role. A team member is a person in the team, of course, and then a team is a collective of people that serve their diverse needs, that serve the team's needs. And team needs is just a list of roles that a team needs. So that in a nutshell. So similar to the way that activities are set up, our processes are set up with activities. Activities are set up and then put into roles. Job titles aren't necessary to get work done. Filling roles in the team are. So anyone can take on any role from any team as long as they can complete activities competently. Going, let's say, for a hotel, someone with the title of a hotel manager could fill the role of front desk if they were competent to perform the activities in that role. So could someone with the title receptionist. If someone with the title concierge was competent for the front desk role, they could slide in and perform it if needed. And so the other part of this, like the front desk role, could have activities from the check-in process, the checkout process, the customer, handling customer requests. One role can have activities from several processes, and also a person can have several roles, and also titles don't matter. As long as you're competent to fill a role, you can fill it. So the other part of this is what we do is we do not partially train a role. So we train to the role. We don't train to the activity. So whenever we develop a training program, it's for every activity in a role. And if an activity is added to a role, then that training is then added to that role. The training is then added to people with that role. So someone is either qualified to perform the whole role or they aren't. That seems to work for us. Okay, and so here's kind of the relationship between systems development and team development. It's fairly important relationship. So you have your system, your topics, your process, your activity, and then you can only, the rule of thumb is a process with activities must be developed before a role can be developed. You can't develop a role until you have activities from your processes. So for a team member to fill a role, the team must have a need for the role, and a team member must be able to demonstrate required knowledge, skill, and ability to fill the role. So that's basically what this shows. Okay, so next up are system requirements. Pretty much all of us are in organizations that have, a lot of us are, let's say, quality minded with ISO 9001 or AS 9100 or the automotive standard or a medical device standard for quality. But there's other standards, believe it or not. So there's ITAR and there's cybersecurity standards. There's environmental standards, health and safety standards. They're really, what we try to do is look at all of these requirements from these standards together. So it doesn't matter what management system standard, there's still, when it comes right down to it, there's a requirement. So you can pull all these requirements out of all these standards. And then once you have that, okay, what are the controls for that requirement? Those controls are then put into a process. And then also, we always make sure that we know who to go see. And that really helps, especially when you're auditing, that you already know that this requirement I'm going to go see, these are all the requirements. When I go see this person, these are all the requirements I'm going to look at. So that's pretty much it. But as I said, management system requirements can come from any number of sources. They generally come from external sources, but they don't necessarily have to. In my opinion, it's beneficial to break down each individual requirement from each management system standard. And this sounds like it's tedious, but you spend a couple of days with the standard and get all the requirements sussed out and get a list. It's well worth it. So management system standards shouldn't be confused with assessment criteria. So a management system standard has binary requirements. You either have evidence of compliance or you don't. In many cases, management system standards such as ISO will have a bunch of shalls. Then it's a requirement. That's a tell right there. An assessment criteria is a maturity model with a rubric for scoring on a scale. So this would be like Shingo or Baldrige. This presentation isn't scoped to that. I don't know how well that would work. if you try to load those into system requirements, because there's a goodness, a scale of 1 to 5, what are you going to target? Where are you going to target? But with the management system standard, it's yes or no. You're targeting yes. So here's an example of just 2 random requirements when I pulled out of ISO and when I pulled out of NIST. For the ISO example, the organization shall determine and provide resources needed to ensure valid, reliable results when monitoring or measuring is used to verify conformity of products and services to requirements. So what I do is I just go through and I turn each one of these into a question. So does your organization determine and provide resources needed to ensure and so on? If the answer is no, then you need to develop process control to meet this requirement. If the answer is yes, then you still need to be able to answer how your process meets that requirement, because that's what an auditor is going to be looking for. And they're going to be looking for evidence of that. A control represents an action or practice that an organization needs to implement to a specific, to meet specific requirements. Once the requirement is understood, a control is developed to meet the requirement. I generally, and the other thing I do is whenever I look at a requirement, usually I see it in 3 different stages. Have we developed the control? Have we implemented it? And is it sustained? And the sustained state kind of toggles back and forth based on audit results. And that's just the way I handle that. The monitor and improve is hopefully everybody, most of the folks on this webinar are quite familiar with this. And again, it depends on the language of what you call things and what industry you're in, but the basic components are here. So you monitor, set objectives and performance and target goals. So, and that you do this at every level of the organization. And then you're going to develop performance measures, all the data coming from your processes, and this could be any data coming from your processes, from your audits. You have tons of records. Hopefully, you're going to have goals against those records and be able to evaluate and analyze all this data to see if you're meeting your performance targets, and you're going to have measures. And then at some point, you're going to review those measures. And then this is either going to kick into an improvement project where you want to get better, or some type of corrective action where you want to fix a problem. All this goes back into the processes, and hopefully you're keeping, you're making note of all this so you have a nice knowledge library so that you don't have to relearn the same things over and over again. So from a review, these are the 2 elements that I see are most important that I want you to come away with. It isn't possible to go through all the nuances with integrating management system requirements into this in 1 hour. My hope is that this presentation got you thinking about the possibilities. I've personally never seen these concepts presented in this manner and would really like to know your opinions. Like I said, we set up a discussion in the QMD community on MyASQ. And I'd really like to know, am I stuck in the past? Is there a better way? Have you seen something like this before? Do you know where I can learn more if you have seen something about different approaches? And also, what aspects do you think will work for your organization? And then what parts of this do you think won't work? And is there anything missing? So I'd really like, I would really like your opinions. I'm learning this too. So this is the obligatory pitfalls and solutions that come with anything. Really, all of these, there's 6 there. 5 of them are pretty much anytime that you put any type of change, a transformational change into an organization, 5 of them are it's going to be regardless. So you don't want it to be overcomplicated. there's going to be resistance to change. If there's lack of leadership, it's much harder, if not impossible. And then inadequate resources, and then siloed implementation. So this kind of does away with departments as far as like owning processes. For managing people, you still need them. But as far as processes, they're managed by roles and teams. So the one that gets me is the misinterpretation of standards, and applying external standards too strictly can create unnecessary constraints. And this does challenge traditional business norms, this approach, from the way that you do procedures to the way you do standard work, to the way that processes are part of one system. So in that case, and so really it takes people to really understand standards, not what they've heard somewhere. You have to understand the actual requirements of the standards. So invest in training for those interpreting the standards, work with external experts or certification bodies, and ensure accurate understanding in application. So just because we always did it this one certain way doesn't mean that we always have to continue to do it a certain way, especially when it comes to defining processes, because we have tools now that we didn't have, let's say 20 years ago when we had to write the 7-page SOPs. The benefits would be, streamlined operations. So this is going to combine multiple standards and regulations and policies into one system. It'll ensure that all regulatory and standard requirements are met through clearly defined processes and roles. Everybody knows their part. Better decision making, and we'll get into that. I think the next slide or a couple slides. Stronger team collaboration, improved risk management, scalability. So, like I said, if you have a manufacturing facility or a restaurant, or you can have the same operations map and the same processes, and just scale them to every time you, let's say, open up a new franchisee, they could just you just drop it in. So benefits and challenges. Really, the thing here is the best way to avoid the pitfalls is to keep it simple. So this is a transformational change for most organizations. It does take persistence. Like I said, we've been working on this for 9 years. With a couple years, that year COVID was a little messed up, but this is something that we're still learning and we're still growing. But it takes persistence. Stay flexible, prioritize communication, make the system serve the organization and not the other way around. Okay, so here is my one AI slide. And I know AI has been getting a lot of press lately. In some cases, I think it might be a little bit overblown. But let's just say that as far as, and again, I'm working with a large language. This is about retrieval augmented generation using a large language model. If it takes you 2 years to get this ready to go into, let's say, AI, there's probably going to be a different model in 2 years from now. So this illustration will work, like, let's say right now, or maybe in the next 6 months. It's hard to say what's going to happen 8 months from now, a year from now. But if you could imagine, AI LLMs don't know your business. And also garbage in, garbage out still applies. So the way these models are set up is, there's training, and then depending on how long ago they were trained, things start getting a little fuzzy, and they certainly don't know anything about your business. So maybe AI can be used for something more than just annoying your customers with targeted emails and ads. Maybe it can be used to help make improvements on how you add value to the customer. So with us, if AI were pointed to the decades of documents and data on our network drives, it wouldn't just be hallucinating, it'd be tripping. AI should be pointed to vetted material to achieve best results. And so there's a way to do this. It's called retrieval augmented generation. So this is where the information from your company is used to augment a large language model. And so basically you have you have your user, your company, they're going to write a query. And then instead of going straight to the large language model, it's going to go up to a vector database that has been embedded with all of this stuff. Okay, so all this stuff's in there, and then it's going to create an augmented prompt based on just your company's, all this information through all this system. And then it goes to the LLM, and then you'll get an answer with citations back from your system of operation. So in fact, what I've heard, so I haven't done this yet. So I've just been trying to get us maybe set up to do this. But the way I understand it is if the user were to ask it some sports question or something, it would say, I don't know the answer, because its answers are going to be constrained by what you have in your system. And the other part about this is if you have a CMS from one vendor or customer management system, or you have HR system and then a ERP and then all your different systems, content management system, this is going to look at all that. So doesn't all have to be in one system, and it doesn't all have to be structured data. It can be a mixture of structured versus unstructured data. So basically, you would be able to have answers to anything at your fingertips, especially if you have your knowledge library set up and can look at all your improvement ideas or improvement projects and design data and everything else. So that's nice and everything, but if you take it a step further, once you have this set up, you could actually just fire off an agent 10 o'clock every morning, let's say, that would do this review and then recommend, or at least let you know if something unusual is happening at any level of the organization, and then recommend improvements to your system based on requirements, team competence, performance. So anyway, you should be, if you're going to use AI to actually help you with operations, and even like the IoT stuff that would be coming out of these activities would go in there. I would say that you need something to make sure that whatever the AI is pointed at is going to give you the best results. Okay, so I think that pretty much is the presentation. So we got, 20 minutes or so, or a few minutes for questions, and I'll do my best.
Yes, so thank you so much, Jerry. This was a great presentation, and I can see from the comments how much people are appreciating it. So we'll go right into the questions. I'll stop the recording before we do the questions. So give me a second here.